The
And we're
webinar.
live.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome again, everyone, to the Flint Public Health Youth Academy in our talk show series, The Youth Perspective. Our last talk show was wonderful. We talked about the reopening of schools and how young people feel about it. It was a very engaging and in-depth conversation, as well as we think that it had some impact, as we see now that the Flint schools and many of the school districts around us have now deemed that they will have virtual learning for the fall semester. So youth, your voices count, your voice matters, and we're here because we care. So today's talk show is about literally how young people feel about engaging with police. What is it like? What does it feel? What are the experiences, and how does those experiences impact them? And so we have some awesome panelists today. We have Asia Donald, just wave your hand, Christian Mays. We have Cole Mays, Tomas Tello, raise your hand. There you go, Everett Graham, Elisa Deal. We have Khalil Calvin, Monisha Summers, Jasmine Hall, and Kiera Wallace. And we have three wonderful facilitators and co-hosts who will join us and facilitate us throughout the rest of this show. That's Cruz Duhart, Amir Ellison Brown, and the fabulous Kayla Shannon. So we're excited about this discussion. Let's jump right in. Cruz, take it away.
All right, how's everyone doing? Hopefully well. Cool. So I'm gonna start off with the question, what do you think of when policemen approach you? Oh, and yeah, raise your hand. Asia?
Personally, I've never been approached by a police officer, but like when like you get pulled over and like your parents are getting approached by a police officer, I always feel kind of like nervous about it because I usually just chill in the car, but I'm always in the passenger seat, and if there's two of them, usually one will come to my side of the car. I'm like, there's no reason for that, but it's like it's just I get scared depending on who's driving, who I'm with. It just depends.
Right, so you get that like general unnerving feeling? I can feel that. Anybody else? Everett?
For me personally, like Asia said, I've never like been approached by a police officer myself, but when I'm with my parents or like when I'm out in public with like a group of people and the police pull up or we see police lights, we all like kind of get the feeling like, hold on, let's make sure we're not doing nothing crazy. Like let's make sure we acting right so we don't become a target or stand out in the crowd.
Yeah. Christian?
Like both you guys said, I've never had it personally to me, but when it happens to somebody I know, or, when I'm in the car with parents or something like that, I'm already thinking like something's taken in my mind. Oh, did we do something wrong? Did we do something wrong? Or what's going to happen if we get something wrong? Did we actually do something wrong? Are we okay? Are we going to be okay? So it's just anxiety, nervousness cycling through my head. So.
Yeah. Tomas?
Hello, everybody. Yeah, kind of like everybody else's situation. I don't really drive yet, so I'm usually with either like, have I been? I don't think I've been like pulled over with my friends yet, but like I'm usually with my dad. And I sometimes even go to the extreme because Latinos have been targeted too. Pretty much everybody that is like not the shade of that light kind of coming through. If they're darker than that, then you're a target. That's unfortunate, but I sometimes go extreme because I always overthink sometimes. So I just think headline. Like, I don't want to be the next headline, me or my dad, but we automatically, when the police kind of tailgate you, and this is some advice, I'm sure everybody, probably knows, but even when the police, before they shine their lights, we usually kind of like pull over to the side, kind of just to prep for them. You always keep your hands on the seatbelt and you like ask permission, like if you got like when you got to pull up your registration and insurance and all that, you kind of be like, can I have permission? Or I know someone that once said like they had a weapon in the car, but they were licensed and all that, so they even stated I have a licensed weapon in the car. But like I said, I just automatically get tense because I've noticed a few times we have been pulled over, the police always have their hands on the gun already. Like their hands are like prepped up right when they walk to you, so that just builds a little bit more kind of like suspicion for me. But yeah.
Yeah, I get that anxious feeling that you felt. I've been pulled over a couple of times now, and each time it's just a stressful experience. And understanding that it's also a stressful experience for them. I mean, they don't understand who necessarily they're going to approach when they pull up to the vehicle, but it doesn't ever make you feel better in the case when they got that hand on that gun, they're speaking aggressively, you know, they shine a light right into your eyes and things like that. But you're right. It's important that you keep your hands on the wheel, ask permission for whenever you try to reach for something, especially like if you got to go for the registration, like you said, or if you got to reach into your back pocket for your license or something like that. It's like before you do it, I think it's real essential to sort of let them know where you're moving your hands instead of shifting and things like that.
Cruz, you muted yourself.
Oh, my bad, my bad. Moving on to the next question. How do you feel when you encounter the police? And we kind of talked about that already, but I want to I want to go deeper into how what's going through your head exactly, like before you commit an action or anything. Everett?
So yeah, to dive a little bit deeper, actually today, I was driving around the passenger seat with my mom, and we saw a police pull someone over, and like even not being the one targeted, it kind of makes you nervous because you're like, there's a lot of cases where people are just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and just even seeing them pull somebody else over, it's like that sense of nervousness, that anxiety, like it just makes you feel weird even when you're not even the one in trouble or so-called in trouble.
Right. I sort of get like this sinking feeling, like my heart is dropping almost whenever I see someone pulled over on the side of the road. Anybody else have anything?
I want to jump in. For me, it's not even just when there's like a situation of somebody being pulled over or, I'm being pulled over. It's like, I'm at an event and then there's an officer there with a uniform on. Like it's the uniform for me. Like it's, you know, just that feeling of I wonder if something's gonna pop off. Like that anxiety.
Kayla, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just going to speak to the fact that, so I have younger siblings, and I'll be driving around with them, and my 5-year-old sister Adele, anytime she sees a police car, she's like, someone's in trouble. And so that became a conversation that we had to have because her automatic association with an officer or a cop car was that someone's in trouble. And it was an actual explanation that I had to give, like, officers do other things than arrest people. And I think that becomes very important, and it speaks strongly to what we oftentimes as a nation associate with officers and what has become the stigma around the job is just the fact that it's hard for us at this point to see them and think of anything else than the possibility of a ticket or the possibility of being arrested or the possibility of being in trouble. Like they're no longer associated with someone who is meant to help us or someone who's saving the day. It's more so what is going wrong or what went wrong for them to get there.
Yeah, and that's a big issue because the whole point of police is to serve and protect, right? They're supposed to be, key members in our community. And so they're supposed to feel like they're part of it. And with what's happened recently, you kind of get this distance on that where it feels as if like they're on a whole different side than yours. And they're supposed to be, right there with you. That being said,
Cruz, can I interject for 1 second?
Yeah, you
I
can.
had a group of young people that I talked to earlier this week, and I was asking them, some of them are going to be watching the show, but I was wondering what their perceptions of just seeing the police or encountering the police, how did it make them feel? And it was really ironic that specifically most of the kids felt fear or terrorized. as opposed to, oh, the cavalry is here, or this is someone. Like, for some people, when they see the police, it's like the knight in shining armor who's coming to protect and serve, arise. And for others, it's like, oh my God, yeah, we're about to be terrorized. And so it's just, there's this dichotomy in thinking, and a lot of that has to do with historical experiences. But for young people to feel that way already, and I think that that is very telling of what some people's experiences are with police.
Right. And something that I've noticed when I've been in conversations with friends and everyone else, like my family members that I interact with, there's normally not an in between. It's either you see them as heroes or you see them as someone who kind of controls and amidst that terror. Everett, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of speak to the point that you and Dr. Key were kind of floating on, and Kayla too. Like, it's weird how, like, when you talk to younger kids or even like kids our age or even adults, like, some people, like, when the crime is committed against them, like their house is robbed or their car has been vandalized, a lot of these people don't call the police anymore. It's weird that how in a world where the police are supposed to be the people who protect and serve, when something is done to us, we don't call the police out of fear for the fact that we might become the target, even though the crime was committed towards us or to someone we know. It's weird how, like, we're scared and terrified for the police to show up because we're like, well, if they show up, they getting us too. Like, it's not just going to be whoever committed the crime, it's going to be us too. So I just thought that was something I should mention.
All right. Alyssa?
Okay, what Everett said previously about the making sure you're doing everything kind of correct so you're not out of place or standing out or anything. I definitely took that route, and I feel like the most parts I became so terrorized and fearful. Well, it was more of like fear, and then it turned into resentment. Well, it turned into from fear to just genuinely being like concerned and just wanted to do everything you could, to resentment, and then it turned to hopelessness. So those are like the steps I went through, and I feel like a lot of youth go to. First it's fear, then it's just you feel some kind of way towards police. You're just wanting to get back at them. You're trying to get even, vengeance, all this, just wanting to release that anger for this unjust, unjust society. So, and then it turns into just, you know what, I want to do something better. And this is the stage we're at right now. And then when you realize you can't do everything you want or you can't fix everything, it turns into hopelessness. And that's what I went through. And I feel like at that point, I was not only operating in fear, but I positioned myself in my life and in society to avoid or really just try to help in my comfort zone where I wasn't going to be offended, where I wasn't going to have to risk my life, where I wasn't going to have to risk my emotional status, which was drained. I was drained because I kept seeing those videos of people getting shot and all that, and that just drained me emotionally because I'm a very empathic person and I feel everything at a time and I can't be around it, so I just numbed myself. So I literally it sounds bad, but I avoided seeing any like Black Lives Matter posts. I avoided seeing people protesting because I didn't want to feel that. And I got numb to it to the point where I just completely isolated myself and really just didn't want to hear anything about it because I just was so overwhelmed and I couldn't fix everything because I'm like a perfectionist. So I think that's my experience personally, and I hope I didn't offend anybody, but that's just personally how I feel like I'm opening up to realize I don't have to completely isolate myself out of the general population to be away from struggle, but instead it's focus. It's about, what are you focusing on? Are you focusing about trying to fix everything? Or are you focusing about, hey, we're just going to have to do everything we can do and then just, move from there. But that's all.
Yeah, that was a great answer. And I understand that resentment because the fact that we had to go out of our way to make sure that we aren't a target and keeping my hands on the wheel. It's the fact that it's expected that, but unless I do those things, I can be a threat. And I also understand what you feel about witnessing those videos. That's actually something I wanted to talk about. But first, I want to start with, do you believe that social media has brought more awareness to police brutality?
Are you asking me personally?
I'm leaving it open to everyone, but if you want to start.
Oh, sorry. Okay, since I'm already open, I'm just gonna answer. I'm sorry for cutting him, but I think it actually, we're in this news overload, and somehow people have this perverted idea of being informed and aware, to being overwhelmed. So I think that this is a very new sensational what's it called? It's a sensory overload. When babies get in public places, they're witnessing everything. It overwhelms them. They cry. They either go to sleep, and that's why they have to be coddled so they don't see everything that's going on. So we might think we can control everything, but we're still babies to this world. Adults are still babies to this world. There's so many things that are coming in and out that we don't have control over. So I think when we just engulf ourselves into the news, which social media is news, it doesn't matter what platform you're on, they're spreading news everywhere. So I think if you're putting yourself in a position to be overload mentally and you think that the only way you'll be calm is to watch the news, that's completely opposite. You're going to overload yourself, overwhelm yourself, and that's just going to end up in the same place. It's like they want to skip this process of feeling resentment, and then have their own world where the news is informing them. But it all still leads to hopelessness. It could lead to complaining, oh, this world is so terrible, everybody's so terrible. And that just is so negative. And I think it matters how your state of mind is. And that's why I joined. I really like that this is other reasons, but I enjoy seeing community, especially youth coming together, not in isolation, because you haven't seen that much part of the news, maybe because I don't watch the news that much, but where their suicide rates are going up. I don't know if they're showing that on the news, but they're going up. And that's because we are social beings. We are meant to socialize, and not to complain and to hurt each other, but to encourage and to participate in social activities. But news, to just close that up, news, I feel like it depends if you have to be self-accountable at this point. If you're overindulging and saying, I'm going to watch news every single morning to see what everything's going on so I can be prepared and everything, that does not do anything for you. That's my personal opinion.
And desensitization is real. Like, when you see yourself looking at these people, and like that's trauma, because if you can imagine yourself being those people that are being shot or brutalized, it weighs on you mentally. And that's true. It is important to consider that sometimes this is a little bit too much. I think Everett, you had your hand raised first.
Yes. To answer the question, I believe 100% social media has a lot to do with the fact that the movement has gotten bigger. But I also think that social media is it was in before times when police brutality and stuff was happening less. Social media was people's escape. So people would watch the news, or they would be on talk to their families about it, and then they would get on Instagram for a laugh, or TikTok for a laugh, or Facebook for a laugh. But nowadays you can't really do that anymore. And I feel like it's a good thing and a bad thing that you can't just escape it anymore, because the fact that we can't escape it means the fact that we can't forget about it. Because, there's been many times where we had big splurges or big events in the movement, and then 2 months later, people forget about it, or we stop posting, we stop saying Black Lives Matter, we stop calling out cops, calling out governments for not doing their jobs correctly, just because we got our views, we got our little drop in the pot. But we're not looking for a drop anymore. We're looking for a splash. We're really trying to make something change, and I feel like social media is really contributing to that.
Yeah, and you gotta weigh that balance in the case that at some points it just seems like a trend, but at other points I think it really is opening other people's eyes because they've never experienced it before. And to sort of understand or get how other people feel, you need to witness it. Sometimes seeing really is believing, and you gotta hold that. You gotta also understand though, like how I was talking about with Alyssa, that plays, that places so much mental burden on you, though. I mean, watching someone give their last breath, it takes something out of you if you sympathize with them. And so that being said, it's almost like it's hurtful. It's hurtful to see that constantly on your feed, because I'm gonna be honest, from my perspective, I don't think it's happening more necessarily. I think it's just being filmed more. And that's why it's showing up so much. And because of that, we're able to see now, it's happening here, it's happening there. And it's almost one every day, it feels like. If not every day, every week. Anybody else have some input? I see Alyssa's got her hand raised.
Okay, if anybody else doesn't have anything, because I don't want to take up everybody's time and to talk, but I just wanted to put out there that I feel like news control and news censoring is very prominent, and I think that that's definitely a factor to play in, especially to do how much, what is being news broadcast and what is not, and to really go beyond what you see on the news, because most of us know that they can censor the news based off of what's trending and what people want to hear or what they want people to hear. So I like how you said that it's not that it's going up, it's rising, but it's more filmed, and it's more broadcasted to bring awareness, or to really just maybe bring enlightenment. But I really like when you said it takes something out of you, because it takes hope. It says that, man, I could just be walking down the street and somebody could just shoot me. You devalue your life by watching that. You devalue your life saying that. Some people do say, well, that will never happen to me. And then there are others on the other side of the extreme that say that could happen to me anytime, any day. So you lose hope, you lose purpose for life, and there's always categories which type of people you deal with doing tragic situations. There are some who just isolate themselves, numb themselves off, which I went through that stage. There are some who try to do everything. I also went through that stage. And then there are some that understand that there is a greater battle going on that is out of all of our hands, and that we can do our best. But when you, like you said, take on that mental burden and emotional burden, I feel like that just it does something to the spirit, it does something to your heart, and I don't know, I can't explain it. But yeah, that's what I have to say about what you guys said.
So we all sort of agree that they're out there and that it's being broadcasted frequently, but how does it make you feel? Like when you see these videos, because a couple of us have touched on it, that we see ourselves in it, or we think that, it's inhumane the way that it's happening, but how does it make you feel when you were witnessing it in the moment? Kayla?
So I personally have made the decision to stop watching these videos. I'm not going to put myself through that anymore. And I kind of feel like, although I see why some people feel it's necessary to share them, for me, it's kind of like, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the Passion of Christ, but it's the movie about Jesus's crucifixion, and I'm a Christian. And so because I'm a Christian, I love Jesus, right? So it's like watching someone you love die, right? And the Passion of Christ, it hurts me, like it breaks my heart every time. And so although it is Jesus's crucifixion as a parallel is something that drives me to continue doing all the work that I've done, right? Because I know, because he died, I must continue on, because that's grace that he gave me, right? But on the other hand, with seeing these people die, it's, yes, in many ways has helped to drive the movement, because it's like, we can't let these people have died in vain. We can't let this list of names just be a list of names, right? Like, we have to continue to say their names and fight for the justice that they deserved. However, I don't need to watch the Passion of the Christ every day to be driven to get up and give grace to other people. And so in the same way, I don't watch these videos because I don't think other people are forced in the same way that Black people are to relive their trauma every day, constantly throughout their feed. We wouldn't watch someone else's struggle deteriorate. And so I think it's very interesting that news platforms and that everyone feels so comfortable publicizing Black struggle and publicizing Black death. We don't see that much with other demographics and other marginalized communities. We wouldn't watch someone else die. We wouldn't watch, there are many ongoing struggles that are going on throughout the country where people pass away or people struggle, but we don't feel as comfortable publicizing those things as we do publicizing people of color being murdered by police. And I think that's another underlying layer of oppression, because we're just so comfortable traumatizing people of color.
Yeah, and I think that goes with understanding how it impacts yourself. It's not for everyone, to be honest. It's not for everyone to witness these horrible acts. If you feels like it hurts you to witness it, I recommend you don't. It's important to recognize that there is an issue here and that there is a problem. And like I said, for some people, seeing is believing, but that's not the way how it is for everyone. If it truly does harm you, I don't think you should watch them, especially because there's so many. There really is so many. We got a lot of hands raised. I'm gonna start with Asia though.
Cruz, I saw Asia,
Yeah.
then Everett, and then Alyssa, and then Cole.
Then Cole,
So we'll
we
let
get you
them
too.
go, and then we'll have Alyssa go after them just to give some of them some time to get a couple of comments in.
All right.
Okay. Asia.
Okay, so when when Trayvon Martin came, I was too young to watch anything I don't know if there was any videos for him, but I was too young to watch any of them. I couldn't read any of the articles about him. But growing up, it was I don't really want to watch that. I can hear that it happened and know enough that it happened. It was that first time I ever did hear of it on my own, scrolling through social media. I probably did click the video and watch it, but it's that's the one time I'm going to do that. I'm not going to put myself through that again. Just like watching the bombs in Lebanon. That was a one-time thing. I'll never watch another bomb go off ever again. Never. It's at a certain point, it's okay, you saw it once, so you don't really need to keep seeing it to believe that it's happening, because you know that it's happened before. I know that there's been Black people who've been killed by police, so I know that that's an issue that we need to take care of. There shouldn't really be publicizing with the videos. It's more I feel it's degrading to the person and their family to see that on social media. Oh, my son just got shot in his back 7 times. Everybody knows now. I mean, you could put that in, you could say it in the news how they do regularly, but I just feel you shouldn't put the videos out there.
So before we go to Everett, Cruz, if I can interject, one of the things I want to say, Asia, to your comment that I totally get, is that I think we have to do everything in moderation, and then every family handles it differently. When you think about when Emmett Till was killed back in the civil rights time, his mom intentionally did not want a closed casket because she wanted the world to become aware of what was happening to people. And I'm sure he wasn't the first person that had happened to, but for many people, he was the first person that they ever knew the story of. So I do get it. And I do get the re-traumatization of it, but I also just want you guys just also to consider the fact that some families, that is part of how they are going to tell the story so that that person doesn't die in vain, is that they want the name out there because they don't want you to forget about them. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say something similar. Everett, what you got?
I just wanted to kind of play both sides here. I 100% get what you guys are saying. Sometimes it's especially for me, when I see it now, I'm I definitely do not want to watch this, or I don't want to keep seeing this on my feed. But I'm not even gonna lie, growing older, as I'm getting to this point now, I knew these things were real, but it's kind of the thing for me was I knew it was real, but then I kind of brushed it off after a while. And then finally starting to see these videos made it all, it just got stuck in the back of my head now. So now that I've seen it for myself, I can never forget it. So whether I'm scrolling through Instagram and I see the article, it's just playing back in my head. And I get that for some people that can be unhealthy as far as like mentally. But like for me, it's like, it's what keeps me going, like keeps me remembering, keeps me advocating, because every time I hear something, it goes back in my head and I'm like, this is real, this is happening, I've seen it happen. And I feel like there's like people, like there's different types of people in the world, but there's got to be some people out there like me who just like have to see it to like believe it. And once they see it once, they can go like, oh, now I know for sure. Like I've heard it, people have said it, I've seen it on the news, but I haven't seen it for myself. Now that I have seen it, I can go like, yeah, 100%, I'm behind it. I'm going to do whatever I can to make things better as much as I can.
I think it was Cole.
Were you going to say something? Okay. So every time I see it online or something like that, it kind of hurts because it's every single time you see it, it's never gets easy to cope with it, because it's just the realization of the fact that it's been over 10,000 years, more than that, and we're still scared of a person who's a slightly different hue. And it's kind of sad. I guess it's because for most people who are like racist and stuff like that, it's much easier to pretend like it's not a problem than to actually cope and try to change. That's why people like, you see that meme about like the dog who's on fire and it's like everything, this is fine. It's not fine, but that's what most people do. They just brush it off as it's not a problem, even though it will, if everything's on fire and the problem will keep spreading, it's soon going to appear in their face and be an actual problem to them one day. But if people don't do it soon, it's just buildup. It's still kind of sad, Yeah. I kind of cluttered my statement there because
no, you're fine.
What can I say? I'm not the best speaker, but
Nah, but I feel the sentiment is definitely there, even if you feel like you kind of clustered it up. But nah, I understand. Like that's such a strange thing that we created this difference based off of just what you look like. We almost don't do that with anything else. We're told to, not judge a book by its cover, and judge someone's character based off their actions. Get to know someone, and we don't do that when it comes to things like race at all. Like we already put things into our minds based off of the color of their skin, how they're going to be, if they're a threat to me, and things like that. And it's so silly when you really think about it. Like that's something that even children don't really understand. To them, colors are just colors. But it's weird that, growing up, my mom had to teach me certain things, like, because of this happens, and because you look like this, you need to be aware of this. And it's so strange. Like it's literally all based off of what we see with our eyes, and we act as if our eyes don't fail us all the time on other things. But moving on, because I don't want to get caught up too much, and sorry if I'm cutting you short, Alyssa, but we got a lot of other questions and 2 other moderators to get through, and so I don't want to take up their time. Do you guys believe Black women and LGBTQ plus members are being ignored, and why? Cool.
So what I was thinking, I think about this a lot, and the fact that, so usually racists, they have, okay, that's not how you start a sentence. Okay, usually people who have those opinions, they have problems of their own. They don't really have like the right schooling and stuff like that, so they don't really have any other ways to, like, if they don't have talent or skill, or if they're missing something that they want, they usually push other people down just so they can feel just a little bit higher up. Even though if they push other people down on the ladder, it's not going to make them any higher. It's just going to make other people lower. And because of that, people like to because there's a there and a them, people think that's a good excuse to pretend that they're better than, as said, them, which is kind of sad, but it's sad reality, you know? The fact that we still try to be the best, even though we don't really try to be the best. We just give people a title, and then boom, we're the best, apparently, which is sad, you know? Because people have worked as hard as possible, you know, to actually get somewhere, where other people can just disregard that and just say that they're better than them because they don't have this title, or they're not they're a different color. It's sad, and
Yeah, and
it's just sad, you know.
this kind of goes back to when you're in elementary school with the bullies. Like, it's just a different system now because you're older. There's not much reason. Sometimes people feel like because they feel down, they want to push someone else down as well. And it's really, you're right, it's really unfortunate that people do things like that. Everett had his hand raised first, and then we're going to you, Alyssa. I did not forget about you.
Yeah, I totally agree that Black women and LGBTQ plus are ignored, especially in America, and it happens all over the world. But America is just like a breeding ground for like everything gets put on blast here. Like the fact that you're Black and a woman in America, it automatically puts you like at the bottom of the scale, just because like people will treat you worse because you're Black, but then the fact that you're a woman, you'll automatically get treated 10 times worse. And the same thing for LGBTQ plus. Like, I know people who are in the LGBTQ plus community who, when they go to work, they work their normal jobs without people knowing that they're in that community. And then as soon as people find out, they get treated different. Their lunch starts disappearing from the refrigerator. Their boss starts talking to them differently. Like, if people give them dirty looks walking down the hallway, like it's weird how in America, people struggle with the fact that you can be different, whether it's your skin color, who you choose to be a partner to. Like, it's crazy how like one day you can be the greatest thing since like you could be the greatest thing one day, and then somebody finds out that you're different, and now you're the same as dirt. So yeah.
Right. And what's wild is it's only a small differences. Like the fact that you're not the same race or gender as me, or you don't find love in the same type of people I do. It's so strange because there's so many other similarities that you could draw between people, but we never focus on things like that. And I think part of the reason that they're not being treated the same is because they don't fit the same narrative. I mean, to be honest, when you think of, Black person and police, you naturally think Black man. And so I don't think that I think that's kind of needs to be pushed aside in the case that it's not just Black men being, murdered or being brutalized now. And so it's a stereotype, and I think that's why commonly news outlets jump and seize at that, but it's wrong that they do because Black men aren't the only one. And yeah, it's an issue that we need to address. And I appreciate movements like the Say Her Name movement that is trying to push past that boundary and recognize that it's not just men and it's not just heterosexual people as well. Alyssa, you're up.
Okay, guys. I apologize for if I in any way offend anybody, but I personally can't speak for the LGBTQ plus community, and like I don't watch the news. I most of my stuff is censored just because what I follow, and so I think just for me as a Black woman, young woman, I would say like I think that Black women, what I've seen is that they have this inspiration to feel like they have to prove something, which I did not want to feel like I have to prove anything to anybody. And if I wanted to do this life profession, if I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and cook and clean for my husband and do this, I don't want to feel like I'm not living up to my truest potential. And I'm not saying that that's the narrative that the strong and independent Black woman movement is, painting, but I know that I've spoken to other women that feel that same way. Like they might want to just live their life like if they want to become an artist or a painter or maybe work for somebody and not have to live by the standard that you have to be respected. You have to live up to this businesswoman, entrepreneur type lifestyle. And that's not a reality, because you only end up getting your life together for people who weren't even paying attention and really were just being judgmental, and because they just had nothing to do with with their life. And so I remember seeing a lot of, like, you know, women empowerment and stuff like that, and behind principles for like to be very self-motivated to get somewhere to be respected. Like, we have to get to a CEO position to be respected. I don't feel like I want to make my life or follow whatever God's will has for my life into the place where I know that it's perfectly constructed for me, and not to prove anything to anyone, because no one has to prove anything to anyone but for me, Lord Jesus. And that's it. That's my opinion personally. And I just feel like that's a lot of stuff that women probably are struggling with right now, and maybe even, you know, out of Black women. But I feel like Black women are like censored in the news community. I heard of a Black woman that, like, her baby, she miscarried. Well, her baby was stillborn after she was born, because the doctors did the performance and they censored it, and they didn't say anything about it just to protect the company. And maybe that was just a liability thing, but the whole point is that I know that that's a struggle, but us as Black women on here don't have to feel like you have to prove anything to anybody. And that's what I can speak from my personal experience and observation as a Black woman in America.
I'm going to let Kayla go before I say anything.
So I don't think that this is an isolated experience, and I don't think this is something that has begun recently. I mean, we know for a fact that it's not. When we think back to even the civil rights movement and the Black Panther Party, there are time and time again where men, or the experience of Black men, is pushed to the forefront of the movement. The priority of the Black man is pushed to the movement. And you hear this narrative time and time again where Black women are told, or members of the LGBTQ plus community, or members who are members of the Black community who are anything other than heterosexual cisgendered Black people, are told to be Black first. We're told to be Black, and then you can be a woman, and then you can have your sexual preferences, and then you can, you know, whatever other parts of your identity that aren't Black, your priority to them, or to some people, should be that you're Black, as if the color of your skin affects you separately than the rest of your identity, or as if I'm not Black as I am a woman, like as if I wake up in the morning and I put my skin on before I put on my genitals. Like it's an interesting concept, but as I said, I don't think this is an isolated experience. And so and that's where the all Black Lives Matter movement comes in. And I've heard this comparison that to say hashtag all Black Lives Matter is the same as to say all lives matter itself. And just to speak on that very, very clearly and quickly, that's ignorant, obviously, just to be frank, because oftentimes when you hear Black Lives Matter, as you said, the first Black life that comes to mind is the lives of Black men. And so the fact of the matter is, even if police officers, even if we as Black people are liberated against this one issue of police brutality, and we as a community are able to come against that, are Black trans women going to stop being attacked by Black men? Are we going to stop brutalizing ourselves? We can't fight against the world if we're going to continue to hurt one another. If we won't support ourselves within our community, a house divided cannot stand. So for us to attempt to combat all of these communities and tell the world to value our lives while not looking at each other or ourselves in the mirror and not seeing value is counterproductive. It's contradictory. So as I said, I don't think this is an isolated experience. Yes, we have seen, even statistically, that instances of Black males being killed are on social media reposted or trending more often times than instances of Black women being killed. Or, for example, we'll see the same people who will hashtag George Floyd, who will ignore the names of Black women, or who will go to protests and say Black Lives Matter, and then afterwards on the way home attack a Black trans woman in a gas station. So I think it becomes an opportunity for us to hold ourselves accountable. What do we mean when we say Black Lives Matter? Are we saying Black men matter? Because, okay, but is that liberation? Is that freedom? Is that what we're searching for? And I mean, if it is, then that's sad. And that's something in and of itself that needs to be targeted before we as a people can approach anyone and tell them how to better care for us.
I think what holding both of those two hand in hand, those two perspectives between Alyssa and Kayla, the reality is that we sort of push certain things and then ignore the other ones. And right now, I feel like Black women are being ignored. Black trans people are being ignored, and I feel as if we're doing this because they're not what we think, and it's not even necessarily true. Is the means of importance, but they are. Every life is valuable equally. And that's the reality there. It doesn't matter statistically, even if you try to pull up a statistic, if it happens more to Black men, the reality is it still happens to Black women. And it means that just as much. And the issue is that we're not treating it that way. And I agree with Kayla is that we got to have this acceptance within ourselves and in the Black community, to be honest, is that we value each other. And it's been pushed a little bit as if we don't. We are running out of time though. That being said.
Go ahead and get Tomas's question. Did anyone else have a response to this segment? And then we're going to transition to the next. Who else?
Someone else had one too.
Okay, that's fine. Get Tomas and then Kiara.
Yeah, I was just gonna chime in real quick so we can move on to piggyback on what Cruz and Kayla were talking about. So these were very, very good points about valuing ourselves and how important that is to the movement. But I just want to make sure we're not blurring the lines at all in the difference between, this conversation about Black on Black crime and all of the other things that are going on in our community. That's separate than what we're doing with the All Lives Matter movement and the Black Lives Matter movement, because another layer to that, gang violence and everything else that's going on is something that we need to address. But part of that notion was put in by these same institutions that have been continuously putting us down, So I just want to make sure while we are exploring these ideas, we're not blurring those lines. They are, I just want to make sure we're not blurring those lines.
Yeah, I get you. And it's important to understand that even though we have conflict within ourselves, that doesn't justify anything else that happens to us. And it's important that we're still fighting these battles both at the same time, and they're both, valuable. But like I said, the fact that Black on Black crime thing even exists, low-key, I have issue with in the case that we don't call normal crime white on white crime or Asian on Asian crime and things like that. But pushing that aside for a couple of seconds.
You got Tomas next.
Tomas had a question or statement.
No, kind of like a statement to add on real quick. I know we on a time crunch here, but I just kind of wanted to fit in kind of like my viewpoint. But yeah, kind of like Alyssa first said, like, well, I can't speak for the LGBTQ plus community or the women, but me kind of just observing, and I know that the issue's deeper or like representation than just like an
We lost your sound, Tomas.
Yeah, you cut out.
His camera froze.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and transition on, and when he comes back, we'll let him finish his statement.
So
Cole, you got your hand up?
Something?
Yeah, I would just like to clear up my statement because it's kind of like jambled,
that people are being kind of.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear
Sorry,
us?
you can continue. Sorry for cutting off.
Tomas, can you hear us?
You're kind of breaking up.
I'll text him and let him know.
All right. You can go ahead, Cole.
Hold up. Okay, never mind. What I meant to say was the fact that people can use titles as a way to pretend that they're better than people because of like if they think that title means something bad, because like people can think whatever they want, and the fact that people think it's okay. I'm saying this all wrong. Just scratch that whole thing out. It sounds so wrong. Never mind.
No, don't trip on that.
It kind of sounds bad. I'll be honest.
No, I think what you're trying to say is people use these labels to sort of, set a hierarchy when there shouldn't be. And I sort of get what you're saying. But I want to pass it over to Kayla because she's got some questions for us.
And just be cognizant of that we have 30 more minutes for the show. So we got to get through 2 other segments. So if you could kind of condense to 2 to 3 minute responses if possible, that will help us. Thank you so much.
Alrighty, so my first question is based on your knowledge of police brutality and what we have seen it to be in media, how do instances of police brutality affect you personally? This is something that we've touched on a little bit as far as when you see it on social media, but how does this translate into your personal life, into your demeanor? Does it affect your schoolwork? Does it affect the way you interact with family? Asia, I see your hands up.
Can you guys hear me? Sometimes I don't hit the unmute button. Okay. Personally, it like ignites a little fire in me. For like in school, we have like I take AP classes, so we get to write about stuff that matters to us a lot in those classes. And a lot of times I do find myself, if we're in a time like this, I'll write about Black Lives Matter, the whole movement. Most of my papers and like history classes, I kind of drove them over here with like how oppression just keeps repeating itself in history. A lot of the teachers, they were like, you kind of write the same paper over and over again. It's hard not to grade it, but it's hard to grade it because it's just the same thing. But it's like, I'm trying to get my point across. Like, that's how it feels reading the news. For me, it's the same thing over and over again. It's not fun reading a paper that I've turned into 6 other teachers, is it? Well, it's not fun reading an article that's happened to 6 other Black people either.
Absolutely. I definitely understand your frustration with that. Cruz, you raised your hand.
Right. It's still a problem. Like, I'm gonna keep writing until the problem go away. I feel that. But for me, it's just another stressor. Like, I'm already in a pandemic. I gotta take online school, and also I gotta worry about how people are treating people who look just like me. It's a lot. Oh my gosh, it's a lot. And I'm expected to, excel and succeed at the same rate. And so it's a burden. It's a burden. And it's a burden that I don't think should exist. But I feel charged to hold on to and do something about. And really it's just understanding that you gotta know how to pace yourself. And it's unfortunate, but that's kind of what I've been tasked to do with. A couple of people mentioned before that they don't always look at videos and stuff. I don't always look at videos either. It's too much sometimes.
Yeah, it definitely becomes overwhelming, which is something that, has been stated. Everett, you raised your hand?
Yeah. So basically for me, in my personal life, the way it affects me, like it always keeps me paranoid, like on my toes. Cause recently it hasn't just been police that are out here like hunting Black people. Like it's been other people. So every time I go somewhere, I'm just more aware. Like when I'm at school and I'm talking to my teachers about things that are going on, like against Black people, and they try to like get an understanding from my standpoint, it's kind of weird that your teachers are learning from you. Like people who have lived 40, 60 years longer than you have, and they're still learning from you about things that are going on today. So that's just something else that I think of. It like keeps me paranoid, keeps me like having to educate the people around me, even though they should be the ones educating me. So
Sorry, Alyssa, I'm sorry. I think I passed over you. I see your hands up.
Yes. This takes me back to the conversation we had in the beginning about how I went through this process, and how I went through this process of, like, first it was denial, then it was, just anguish, then it was just resentment, and then hopelessness. And then I came to, like, come to Jesus moment, I guess, and just, it was so overwhelming. I'd watched a sermon and it talked about how, you're not doing anyone any good when you numb yourself. And some people are being numbed, some people are just being overwhelmed, some people, everyone keeps, reassuring or reaffirming that there is that time where everyone has their own personal perspective. And for me, it was just that numbing perspective. I just stopped feeling everything. And then I listened to a song today by Social Club Misfits, and it said, we dream about how things could be, and that's why we're uncomfortable with the way things are right now. And it's normal to feel an uneasiness when things are not going the way that you hope them to be, or that they should be, justly and fairly. And then, I don't need to get political about anything or religious, but it says the issues in life remind us that we are not God, and that we are in dire need of one. We cannot control everything ourselves. And I feel like that is such an important, like, standpoint, especially when talking about something that is so, like, graphically impactful to young children. Like, Asia, I think, talked about in her classes, it's so, like, in her mind that she, like, is so impacted by this, and you'll feel the need to justify these people because other people cannot control themselves. They're violent, they have anger in them, and it's so sad that we have to hold people or pay the price of somebody else's crime, in a way, by being affected by what they do. But I hope that makes a little bit of sense. But personally, I'm moving from numbing myself. That's all I have.
So I wanted to interject, Kayla, if you could let Tomas, because now he has a good strong signal, finish his last response, and then you can transition to the next question, which I can't wait to hear the response to that one. So go ahead, Tomas.
Can you hear me? Kind of to answer real quick, I'm gonna be super quick with it, sounded quick, but kind of to answer Kayla's question real quick, and then I'll tap right off, finish the icing on the cake with the other one. But kind of what Kayla was saying, me, kind of as a person of color, we're kind of part of the struggle as well too. And and even for Black people, I feel for them. I know I don't look it, but I got like a little bit in me. But even if I wasn't, I got love, because we're all brothers and sisters here, But it just makes me more frustrated and want to not just only, like, I definitely want to achieve justice for the people who were murdered. Like, for example, arresting the cops who killed Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and who shot, now I forgot his name, in Kenosha, the gentleman who was trying to be a good Samaritan and then was punished for it, which is, it's unspeakable. It's a farce. But like I was saying, it kind of makes me want to go beyond that as well, kind of go into the little issues we might not even think about. Like, I know, like, I've seen a bunch of videos, like, where a Black person was not killed, but they could have almost been, like, it'd be a white lady, walking her dog, and, like, if you say something like, hey, keep your dog on the leash. Remember, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a gentleman kind of walking his dog, or no, he wasn't walking his dog, but a lady had her dog under control, and he kind of said something politely, and she got all offended and started making a false 911 call. Like, I believe that there needs to be legislation, and, like, that needs to be put on blast as well, that you can't exaggerate, or you can't make these false lies. That's what it is. It's lying. And then meanwhile, other people's lives, while you're lying, other people's lives are being at stake. Like, that Black man could have been shot and killed just because he was trying to help that woman out, just not so her dog will get lost. I know, my bad, I'm going all over, but so another bystander wouldn't get attacked by, like, it's just, I think that needs to put on blast, like the little things, like making a false, 911 call, or exaggerating it, and whatever have because while they do that, more people are being killed or could be killed, and that's not right. But, you know, kind of to finish what I was saying earlier about the whole, like I said, like me, I can't speak for the women or the LGBTQ plus, but like I was saying, I've just kind of noticed, I feel like I'm not bypassing that, you know, that other issues like those are being, you know, ignored and kind of like not on the shelf, like it's high, you know, they're not like the center of attention. But I kind of believe that in some ways, instances, I feel like they are, that there are other issues from the Black Lives Matter movement are now becoming, you know, more put on blast. Like I'm seeing now with posts, I know it's just a post, it's nothing, like not really major progress like we'd like to achieve, but I've seen more people posting and spreading information about, you know, LGBTQ plus people and women that are being targeted. Because in Mexico right now, it's horrible. Women of all ages, babies and elderly women are being killed just because they're women. And, you know, the Muslims that were in China, they're probably still there, unfortunately, in the concentration camps, you know, and just, you know, the now sex trafficking. I've seen a lot of things about that now. So I feel like it's putting all kinds of other issues on blast and things within the Black Lives Matter movement, like name changes, you know, painting, you know, like taking down those punk General Lee statues and all that irrelevant things that don't need to be, you know, reliving the negative emotions, you know, like all of that other stuff. But now kind of to also add, what was I gonna say? But I feel like yeah, that's just basically what I was gonna say. I feel like, but with the post thing, me personally, now I know it does, and it gets me enraged, like not only upset, but it makes me want to kind of even get violent, you know, and kind of like get your justice, you know. But I feel also that posting in a way is kind of important. Like me, I don't always watch them, and I agree. If you don't want to see it, you shouldn't be forced because you already know the issue. Everybody lives it, you know. If you're, you know who I'm talking about, if you're Black person of color, LGBT, anybody that's targeted or whatever, you know what I mean? You already know about it, so you don't have to watch it. But in a way, I feel like it is good to post. I feel like it needs to happen because it's putting more issues, you know, on the spotlight, on the social spotlight, kind of like my friend Alyssa said earlier. Basically, kind of social media is like another news platform. Like some issues, I didn't know about any Muslims being persecuted. Like I know there are, but I didn't know specifically where, you know. And I always knew about sex trafficking. I didn't realize how large of the issue was. You know, still the babies are all locked up in cages and other Black people too. I just seen a video because I've seen other comedy people I follow post injustices as they should. You know, I still do it. You know, my Snapchat's filled with a lot of memes, comedy and stuff, but I'm incorporating this as well because I feel like in a way, even if I can't really do nothing major, I feel like I'm playing my part, you know, on the highway of revolution. You know, I'm in that lane. I'm still message spreading, you know, and informing people because I seen one on that on this comedy page I follow where African-American woman was tased and tackled down. She lived, thank God, because she was talking too loud. Just the craziest things, you know, like I see all of that. So that's just what I kind of want to add on to. I understand the hurt it feels at the post and reliving the moments, but I feel like it's necessary, you know, to educate and further put on blast, you know. But that's it. That's what I had to say.
Tomas, you said the highway of revolution. That is something. That was a powerful statement. So we're going to revisit that in our group and maybe revive that in another talk show. Kayla, go ahead to your next question.
So thank you, Tomas, for that response. The next question is, what is the best solution to reduce, and now that we've acknowledged that this is a problem that we all as young people recognize, what do you think is the best solution to reduce or eradicate this issue? And to follow up with that, if you also want to answer, how can we specifically as young people be active in fixing this problem? Asia, I see your hand.
Education. People in power need education. There should not be anybody who can control what anybody else does who has no education. I feel like police academy, not enough education. I feel like you should have at least a degree in something that matters before you put a badge on. Because to go out there and give anybody a badge, because really all you have to do is go to police academy and you can get a badge. I can get a badge if I decide to become a cadet today. And I wouldn't have any education on how to handle people, how to handle certain situations. You get that, oh yeah, I can shoot, I can tase, you get that, but it's like, you got to think about what people go through. You got to think about how people process things. I know that Cruz or Dr. Key or anybody in this chat won't process everything the same way I've processed my life. Other people need to be able to see that. People in positions of power need to be able to see that. Need to have that type of education, whether it's in social justice, psychology, just because all of those, everything that has to do with law enforcement, anything that has to do with law enforcement, gives you those insights. You have like a class where it's like, here's what you can do to better understand people. They don't know the struggle that every person goes through that they pull over. They got to be able to tap into that.
Yes, Asia, thank you for that. Everett, I see your hand.
I totally 100% agree with what Ada said. And kind of piggybacking off that, education is like the biggest thing, because you think about it, there is no degree that you have to get to become a cop. So a lot of these cops are coming out of high school or a couple years out of high school, where in high school they don't teach you about how to talk to people. They don't teach you how to problem solve and how to diffuse a situation when there's an argument. Well, some schools do, but you don't. That's not the big thing. So when these cops are coming out of high school, going into the academy, and 6 months later they're on the job with a badge, and then 6 months after that they're out here shooting innocent Black people, there needs to be some steps involved where there can be somebody who's teaching these people how to deal with people. If you're pulling someone over and you know that they're visibly aggressive, that doesn't mean you get even more aggressive than them. A lot of people say, oh, when the cops pull you over, you're supposed to make them feel like they're empowered. No, the cops are a part of this community as well as you are. We're on an even ground. Yes, they have the authority to put you in jail if you're doing something wrong, but that doesn't mean that they can get out here yelling at people, screaming at people, pulling them out of their cars just for the simple fact that somebody was aggressive and wasn't as nice to them as they would have liked. So I feel like that needs to be something that is taught in police academies and in other aspects of life, like high school, middle school, elementary school, where these kids are being raised not knowing how to talk to people who are different than them.
Thank you, Everett. That's very valuable. Amir, I see you raised your hand.
Yep. So for me, I feel like there needs to be like a further like family background check on some of these police officers, some of them, because a lot of them, they come from these different types of towns and everything, and you don't know what their real, like what their like family upbringing was or whatever. They could have like a racist family member or whatever, teach them everything, and then now they're in the force and they're carrying around tasers and guns and stuff. So I think there needs to be like a bigger background check on the family side of things also.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're gonna be someone who's licensed to carry a weapon and you go home every night and beat your wife, I think there's a problem. Christian, I see you raised your hand.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of what Amir said. They need more background checks. They need to know who they're letting into force. It needs to be harder to get into force, like Asia and Everett said. Education's a big thing because there's so much hate and there's so much, bouts of rage for some reason. We'll never know. Human nature, it's just terrifying to know that someone can have a bad day one day and go and murder somebody and get away with it just because they're law. So they need to start enforcing that a lot harder.
Absolutely, Christian. Okay. Kiara, I saw your hand up first.
Okay, so I really appreciate Asia start off by talking about education, because that's something that's very important to me, and I stress that a lot, especially with people coming from Flint. It's almost like we have an obligation to have an education. And I know that there are people who say, school isn't for everybody, and that's fine for those people. But the majority of us need to accept the fact that we cannot make advancements for ourselves or for our communities without getting an education. The caveat about police needing education as well, it should be mandatory. At least a bachelor's degree should be mandatory. And outside of problem solving, because you might take alternative dispute resolutions, but you don't have a lot of problem solving per se when you're in college. But one thing you do have is people that are not like you. And so when you think about police killing people, they have this idea about Black people. As a Black woman, I have an idea about white men. I have an idea about white women. But when you go to college, you're forced to interact with these people who, if it was up to you, you might not interact with. And then you find out all white people aren't terrible. All Black people aren't terrible. And you can identify things that you have in common with those people. And I think as you get older, you can easily pick out those who will be allies and those who aren't. But that is also something that comes with going to school. I forgot my other point, so we're going to stop there. But education should be mandatory for all of you and for police as well. But I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on the fact that interacting with other people has a big impact on how you make decisions.
So as we transition, I'm sorry, Kayla, to the next question, one of the things I would like to add to that, when Asia first responded to you, Kayla, she said, for those that have power. And so I saw that more than just the officer with the badge and the gun, but also those who direct and create policies for the officers. And so I personally feel that if you're going to be a police officer in a certain community, you need to be from that community, right? If we're going to be in that community, you need to be from that community. And definitely if you're going to be the chief of police and those that are making the power decisions, you need to be, if you're from Flint, you need to live in Flint. If you're going to be a police officer in Flint, you don't need to be coming in from, Royal Oak somewhere and working here, because you don't know, there's not a village mentality. There's not a family, a relationship with the people there. And so I think that also plays a big part into this.
Absolutely. And so to head on to the next question and kind of shifting gears a little bit, I just want us to talk a little bit more about why it is so important for us and in this movement to say Black Lives Matter, as opposed to all lives matter for those people who make that argument. I'm sorry, I forgot I was supposed to be calling on people. Amir, I see you raised your hand.
So for me, I think the people that say all lives matter, that's like, it's basically just really just ignorant to me, because it's like Black people, as us Black people, we've really like gone through like everything, like Jim Crow, slavery, and then also into like institutions that really try to like pin us down, but in the smallest ways that people don't really realize now. And it's like there's still work to be done, and people need to still realize that that some of these politicians out here, it seems like, and they act like they care, and they say all lives matter and stuff like that, whatever. But it's like they don't really care. And they come from wealthy families and stuff. They've been given everything, and it's just like, to me, it's like, it's just at the end of the day, I think it's just ignorant.
Kayla, I saw Asia and then Cole's hand up.
Well, there you go. We'll go in that order.
And then Christian, I'm sorry.
Okay. This is the part of this that I was waiting for, because this is what I've been arguing on Facebook about. When we say Black Lives Matter, we're not saying that white lives don't matter. We're saying, can you guys care about the Black lives too? We're asking them to put some focus on Black lives, just like they put their focus on lives. Because when Cannon Hinnant was killed, he was all over my timeline. I want to make sure that George Floyd is all over the white people's timelines. We're not asking them to, when we say Black Lives Matter, we're asking, can we get justice for the Black lives that we've lost? We're not saying, oh, white people should get their lives taken too, because Black people are getting their lives taken, or nobody should get their lives taken. We're saying, can we get some attention on the lives that are lost?
Thank you, Asia. I think it was Cole next.
So the reason why they really should like pronounce why Black Lives Matter, like the movement, is because when people say all lives matter, like, it doesn't really make sense, because why are you so reluctant on saying that Black Lives Matter? Instead, you're saying white lives matter and all lives matter. Instead, when you're saying that, well, why are you avoiding saying Black Lives Matter? It's the reason why we should keep saying it more is because people are treating it like they don't matter. And it kind of, until one day where every life matters. Okay, that sounded like very, okay, what I meant to say by that is that until everyone is respected equally for who they are, all lives will matter. But at the time, we need to show that people who say that, you know, Black lives, we need to say that Black lives matter before we say all lives matter.
Absolutely. And just to say really quickly, I think that narrative is also interesting because when they say all lives matter, their intention isn't to actually bring attention to injustices of other community. The implication of saying all lives matter is that you want the focus to be not just on one group of one marginalized community, but that you would also like the focus to be on every marginalized community and on every issue, right? However, when you ask these same people who say all lives matter the name of other people who have been affected by police brutality, they have no names because their concern isn't that white people are also brutalized. Their concern isn't that there are other people who are enduring suffering. Their concern is, I am afraid that you are too empowered within your community to speak up about the issues that are affecting your community. All Lives Matter is not a movement in and of itself. All Lives Matter is an attempt to silence a movement that exists. And so I want us to be very clear about the fact that to say all lives matter isn't to say like, oh, look, this is something that matters. That's not an organization. That's not a movement. That is a silencer on the mouths of everyone who attempts to believe for even a fraction of a second that Black lives are worth more than the value that they are being attributed right now at this moment. Christian, though, you were next in our list.
I agree with everybody's statements. It's just to think that somebody heard, you know, Black Lives Matter and go, that offended me. I want all lives to matter all of a sudden. That's just taking away from the actual movement. And they're just often very uneducated. They don't know what's going on in the actual situation. They heard from somebody else that, oh, yeah, I guess all lives matter, right? No, they need to focus on what actually matters the most. And the people that are getting hit the hardest need to be fixed. That's why Black Lives Matter is supposed to be going way above all lives matter. And all lives matter is just silly. It's just completely ignorant. It's just dumb.
So again, Kayla, I want to interject before you go into the next question. I'm looking at you guys I'm looking at the Facebook Live, and you guys, it's a lively conversation going on. You guys have some watchers that are really watching. And one person said, you know, to say save the dolphins doesn't mean you don't care about the whales, right? Same thing. I just wanted to throw that in. That was funny.
Yeah, and another parallel that I've seen drawn that I was actually just going to mention is that, like, when it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we don't say, someone doesn't show up to a breast cancer walk and say, all cancers matter. All cancers are very important, because it's not to say that other, or during Autism Awareness Month, we don't say all mental disabilities matter. We're not gonna, no, because that's not the focus. That's not what we're targeting right now. That's not the focus of this conversation. And for me, it just shows insecurity. Why are you so insecure? Are you a part of the problem? Does it make you feel upset? Dr. Key is hilarious. Does it make you feel upset to think even for a moment that there's a problem that needs to be acknowledged? And I think that's a question that they should ask themselves. If it makes you feel insecure that someone says that Black Lives Matter, I think there's a possibility that you're a part of the system that is causing people to believe that possibly they don't. If there are no more comments on that question.
Excuse me, Kayla, Ms. Shannon, Kayla, real quick. Yeah, I kind of wanted to add on your guys, what we're currently talking about. Yeah, real quick. Yeah, like you said, if it's my birthday, not all birthdays matter, or if it's, when the Sandy Hook shooting, the Las Vegas, or now Hurricane Laura, I'm not going to be like all hurricane destroyed cities matter. Like what? But you know what? And I kind of want to bring into what, I think, what's her name? The first girl that spoke, she had a big I Heart, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but she mentioned another, like a white boy that was killed by police, Cameron. And, me personally, I feel for their family. I feel that, justice did need to be achieved. But here's the thing, justice was achieved. And I feel like this became a big, PISSING contest, like they're trying to, justice for Cameron, you know, kind of like a rebuttal. And my thing is that the All Lives Matter and now Blue Lives Matter, whatever, it's all not only, you know, kind of hypocrisy, but it's all illing on the dead. It's so disrespectful, you know, and slandering the names of those who've been killed unjustly, you know. But, you know, kind of, and then I was going to go into with the Blue Lives Matter thing and All Lives Matter. How can you be like All Lives Matter? We already know that's some bull. But then how are you going to say that Blue Lives Matter? You know, like it's still, I just feel like there's no justification for it. You know, like there's not. It's just a big, and then the black on black crime. And like someone said earlier, we don't say Mexican on Mexican crime, Cuban on Cuban crime, Jamaican on Jamaican crime. Nobody does that. And you know what? And here's my thing to kind of maybe correct or educate, whatever. My thing is, Black Lives Matter is specifically with the police injustice. And like when you bring up, there is gang violence. You know, every race group has their issues, you know, like whether it be like gang violence with like minorities, you know, or whatever have you, you know, everybody has it. But this specific focus is with police brutality. That is what it is. We're not talking about, yes, black on black crime is an issue. Mexican, any crime is an issue, you know, and that needs to be addressed. And, you know, with collaboration, future, you know, meetings together, we can make that happen and further address it. But I just want to say that as well, that, you know, kind of that, yeah, number one with the Cameron thing, rest his soul, bless him. And the man does deserve, I mean, look, I don't wish death on nobody, but he deserves capital punishment. And I feel like the people who killed Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Sean Monterosa, Vanessa Huyen, and the people trying to cover up for that, they all need to be the death penalty. And I don't, look, I'm Catholic, proud Christian. I don't, you know, I don't think, I don't wish death, but I feel like consequences need to be served. I'm just going to say that, you know. And then kind of like with the whole blue light, or no, shit, what was that? I'm sorry, I'm just going back and forth. But I was going to mention the hypocrisy, you know, and I might bring a little bit of politics into this. I don't want to, but, you know, me, well, it's pretty obvious. I can't stand number 45. I don't even want to say his name, but I just don't like it how people, now me personally, like me, I have my own opinions on abortion, but here's my thing. It's a big hypocrisy game, because how are you going to be like, you know, pro-life, but then little babies out in cages locked up, going missing, God knows what's happening. And then you're going to be like, all lives matter, blue lives matter. And what? So all jobs matter. All, me, I work at VG, so all VG's clerks, all cashiers matter, all baggers and cart handlers matter. You're gonna tell me that? You know, I just think it's a large, like I said, a peeing contest, you know, kind of like, oh, we got the, you know, and it's just a peeing contest, hypocrisy. There's no justification for it. It's bull, ignore it. And there, I'm done, my little rant. But,
say it one more time for the people in the back. Come on now. Fire.
Round of applause.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Thank you, Tomas, for that answer, for that explanation, for those laughs. I feel like that was very necessary. We only have about 5 more minutes, and so I don't know if Dr. Key, you want me to start another question?
So this is what we'll do. We'll go just a little bit over. We want to thank Kiera for being our technological support today, and we don't want to take up too much. But your next question, which was question number 4, and then pass it to the Amir. And if you can go to question number 2 and your question number 4, that will be great. And then we can end in a decent time. All right, so your next question about defund, Kayla, and then you pass it to Amir, and then he will go to his question number 2 and his question number 4.
Okay, so my next question is, what does defund the police mean to you? I know that's terminology that's being tossed around, and so I just want to know what your understanding of defund the police is. And a follow-up to that is, do you believe, after defining it for yourself, that we should defund the police? Everett, I saw you raise your hand.
To me, I believe defund the police means, like, if you look at police budgets, they have huge budgets, but then you look at budgets for schools, hospitals, and like libraries, like other things, you see that the money doesn't transfer. So why does the police in Miami have $64 million or whatever the number was for their precinct, but then you go over to the school board in Miami and they only have $23 million? So it's kind of weird how that works. And then, like, I believe that it's that it's really important that we focus on this, because, like, if you think about it, why are the police getting so much money? I remember a couple of years ago, people were just complaining about how much police officers get paid, but now we're looking at the, like, numbers, and we're seeing that they get millions and millions of dollars just for, like, equipment. So they're spending $1 million on guns, cars. Why do the police have brand new cars every year? But every year, people are getting killed by the police. It like kind of brings me back. I don't know how many of you are like familiar with Kendrick Lamar, but he has a song called "How Much a Dollar Costs," and he talks about how a homeless person would ask a rich person for $1, and the rich person wouldn't give it to him just because to the rich person he wants all his money, but to the homeless man he's like, it's just $1. You obviously got more. And then you think about George Floyd, and you're like, $20 cost him his life for no reason. So how much does $1 cost to these police officers where they're out here killing people over $20, over less, over people who just want to like put good into the world? How are you gonna like take the life of somebody who's putting in good, but then you turn around and want to complain about getting paid, or turn around and complain about how your school system is, but you're not putting any effort in to change things. You're just talking about what you think matters. So that's all I have.
Absolutely. And I think the people who are opposed to the idea of defunding the police in the frame of reducing their budget are ignoring the fact that there's a direct correlation between education and these other programs that we can implement in these communities and the crime rate. So you wouldn't need as many officers in these communities if you would give kids somewhere else to go other than gangs. If the only way to make $1 in your city is for you to sell drugs, if the only way for you to make $1 in the city is for you to sell your body, because your school is closing, because your books are 20 years old, because you can't afford another math teacher, if this is what the infrastructure of your city looks like, then yeah, you're going to have higher crime rates. There's a correlation. Would anyone else like to speak on this question? Amir, I see your hand.
That for me, like I just thought of like how we can like do that, but like it'd be very, very costly. But I was thinking like community centers, like in every like urban environment, because it's like these kids usually they don't have no place to go. They're usually bored. They don't have anything to do after school. So it's like, why don't you just put in a place almost like school, but they can do other different learning activities and everything like that, and be able to get let some steam off.
Absolutely, that makes sense. Cruz?
Yeah, agreeing with Amir. Flint used to have way more community centers. I don't know if there's any left. And part of the reason that we don't now is because we allocated our budgets to go to certain different ways. And part of that is how we vote. But the other part of it is because we believe that we need to give so much money to the police. And what I think defunding the police is like how you said, putting it back into the community and other places that'll help make it so that you don't need so many police. Whether that's, investing in, community centers that also help in finding, different places of work, creating new opportunities. And if you do things like that, the crime will happen less, because there's a lot of people who do crime who don't want to, but they feel like they have to, and it's not a choice for them not to. And we need to push things to make it so that it feels like it's not, to make them remind them in a way that it is a choice and that you can have other opportunities, and we're going to support you so that you can make that choice. And that's what defunding the police really is to me. I understand that we still need a police system, because there are some things that we need, to be protected by. But part of the issue is that those things aren't being focused on. And so there needs to be some sort of accountability, and doing things like, cutting into the budget might bring awareness to that.
So I just wanted to piggyback on both of you guys. And first, I really appreciate being here with all of you students, because y'all are extremely smart and have just blown me away with your contributions and your ideas, and just I was not where you all were at when I was in high school. And half of the stuff that I thought I was gonna say, I didn't even have to say, because one of you have already said it. So I really appreciate that. And so when I said earlier, I wanted to make sure we weren't blurring the lines between Black on Black crime and all of the other systematic issues that contribute to our deterioration. The defund the police conversation is that's what it's about. Because when I think it was Everett that commented on the 64 million or however many millions of dollars Miami had, those are the conversations, that's the propaganda that is used to justify the amount of money that police need. Oh, you know, it's so much drugs in the community, so many gangs in the community. They have all of these, you know, big guns and weapons. We can't compete with that. You know, that is a big problem. And when I think this was when I was in undergrad, but I did a project called what was it? Another way state and local government has failed Flint, right? And I did that project because at the time everybody was talking about the water crisis. And first of all, I was a little aggravated because I'm like, first of all, none of y'all have been to Flint. Y'all don't know what Flint is about. And we've been dealing with the water way longer than what, you know, any of you have heard about it. So this is not the biggest issue for me right now. And state and local government was. And I think everything I'm saying just ties in together, because another reason why I stress that the majority of us do need education and have an obligation to get education is because state and local government is failing because we don't have education. Another thing that goes into the amount of money that the schools get is the census. My cousin and I were talking earlier today. She is one of the people that's going around making sure people have done the census, and people don't want to answer the door or just answer. It's like 4 or 5 questions, really quick questions. They're there. My cousin is there with the information. No, I don't want, I'm about to go. I don't want to do this. You know, get off my property. When we complain about the stuff that we don't have, but we don't have the education to understand that some of the things that we push away or think is a problem is exactly what we need. When I was in undergrad, I was real like on my soapbox, posting all these things all the time. And I just got tired of it because you cannot have a conversation with people who don't have the education to understand where they need to be. And it was really disheartening to try to, get my friends to vote. And they're arguing with me about why they don't need to vote, why, you know, our vote don't matter, all of these other conversations, when that is exactly what we need. Okay. And outside of after school programs, there are so many other things that contribute to the death of Black people at the hands of police. A really big conversation is Black mental health. And some of the calls that go to the police do not need to go to the police. If they're already scared of us, then they have no business to respond to somebody who also has a mental illness. They're not equipped at all to handle mental illness. So if we're taking money from the police, that is where it needs to go. I worded that wrong. I'm not saying if as if I think we shouldn't. Money needs to be taken away from the police. And a big portion of that money needs to go to education. And another part of that is Black mental health. It's been a lot of stories. I don't know. I recall a story about a woman getting shot in her home who was mentally ill, a woman who was shot walking down the street who was mentally ill, and she was shot by an off-duty cop that lived in her building and knew that she was mentally ill. A veteran who called because he knew that he was having symptoms of his illness, and he called the police and came in and they killed him, you know? So there's a lot of things that I think need to be mapped out as far as where the funds need to be allocated. And I really do think that education is most important, as I said before.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. Thank you all for your comments on those questions. I'm gonna pass it over to Amir now.
Okay, so my questions here have to do with leadership and also public reaction to different events that have been going on. So my second question is, how did you feel when you heard about the George Floyd incident? And that's the first part. And then what was your reaction to the protests and riots that have occurred afterward, in the aftermath? And let's separate those two from riots and protests, two different things. So anyone want to go? Okay, Cole.
So when I first heard about it and how big it was getting, I was kind of happy for the fact that it was actually getting known and it was getting out there and people were knowing about it. And it was, you know, because this has been a problem for a long time and something like this snaps and now everyone knows about it. So now everyone is more informed and stuff like that. I'm kind of happy for that. But I'm not really happy for the fact that he died. I'm just saying for the fact that the word's finally getting out there. But the sad thing about it is it took a death to actually get the word out more, which is kind of sad.
Anyone else have a comment on that? Asia and Everett.
Okay. So when I first heard about the George Floyd thing, I saw it from somebody I never ever thought I would ever see share anything about Black people ever. So I was like, I'm making sense to these people now. What I'm saying is getting out there and they finally understanding what I'm saying. They understand my perspective. They understand what I'm trying to get across. And it was like a good post because I'm on Facebook a lot, so I'm always on there like, hey, don't be ignorant. Let's, be mindful that there's people on here. I was blown back. And then I saw those who I know are not really happy with the color of my skin getting upset about it. That also made me happy. I was like, oh, so there's a problem now. You see what I'm trying to show you, and you're mad that I've been right. It's making sense in your head too. You're just too afraid to admit it. Now with the riots and the protests, again, like you said, two completely different things. We do not need to judge all of the protesters by their most violent actions. Just like they say we should not judge every cop by the most violent cops. We shouldn't have to put rioters and protesters should not be in the same bucket, just like murderers and cops should not be in the same bucket. Everybody is not the same. All protesters are not rioters. All cops are not murderers. Those are two different things. So we should keep it that way.
Ever go ahead and then I'll comment after you.
For me, when I first heard about George Floyd, it was kind of the thing like, wow, it really happened again. Like, this isn't stopping. Like, we've heard people talk about it, but it hasn't stopped. And then, like I said before, the simple fact that he was killed over $20 by somebody who he used to work with, it's just crazy to me how one thing can just lead to another. That's why when we're out and we're at the stores today, I get nervous when I think about it. Like, one person could call the police, and next thing I know, I'm on the news. And then when it comes to like the rioters and protesters, I feel like it's not appropriate to riot for anything, but I get it. Like, I get being mad. You outside from 8 a.m. to 9 o'clock at night in the heat, and then the police pull up, and now they shooting y'all with tear gas, coming up with big guns and shields, acting crazy. And like, I get the anger behind that. I get why these riots are happening, because if you're out there protesting for what you think is right, and somebody who is a clear opposition to what you think, whether they say it or not, it can be angering. To be out there and these cops pull up with big automatic rifles, whether or not they be rubber bullets or not, they're still rifles. So I get why people be mad, but it's not appropriate to protest. I mean, it's not appropriate to riot. Protesting is appropriate. Protesting is change. Protesting is getting people in the streets so that we can get these people seen, get these people talking, and the people who don't believe that Black Lives Matter, the people who don't believe that Black Lives Matter is important, get to see that it is.
So Everett and Asia, thank you. I wanted to piggyback on what both of you said. And Everett, don't think I'm picking on you because I already was going to say this before you even spoke. But where I'm at in my life, I do not consider the protest riots. I'm not going to call the protest riots because they're protests. And I don't care, about the buildings that are destroyed. When it comes to small businesses and Black businesses, there's a feeling there. But when we're talking about destruction of property, the only thing that I am concerned about is the people that are going to be penalized for doing it. If I knew that they weren't going to be penalized for destroying property and setting stuff on fire or whatever else, I wouldn't have a care in the world about it. Because to me, that is not rioting. It is a protest. And our protests have grown to now inflict pain the way we have been feeling pain. So if people want to go and destroy something, that's because they feel like we're destroyed. We're being destroyed every day. And George Floyd was just one more thing That wasn't, I'm not really sure why George Floyd blew up the way it did, because it has happened so many times before and has been happening for decades and hundreds of years even prior to this. But I will never be a person that's going to call the protest riots, and I really don't care who feel any way about it. Where I work, there are not a lot of Black people, but I do appreciate the efforts that my coworkers have made to try to have a conversation, even though most times I don't want to have that conversation. I do appreciate their efforts, but that is something that I will bring up to them. I will say that. And the building where I live in DC, the doors and the glass in our lobby was smashed. It is what it is, because that's where we're at. And the other day I posted a very lengthy, I was venting basically on my Facebook, and it's a picture of Breonna Taylor and me. And when we were talking about, I talk a lot about how Black people are traumatized, but I'm just now recognizing when talking to my friend how much Breonna Taylor is like messing with me. And I think part of that is because the dress that she had on is very similar to a dress that I wore, and she looks so much like me. So I see that every time I see her. But in that post towards the end, one of the things that I said was, we have never been given peace. We have never been given civility. So I don't understand why we are expected to respond that way. Somebody mentioned Emmett Till's mother earlier. That was 1955. And Black people have been murdered many times prior to her son dying. And in 1955, she did that. In 2020, we still feel like we have to record these injustices like people don't know they're going on, because they do know that they're going on. So, like I said, I'm never going to equate the two, because I know where we are at as a people. And once again, education does play a big part in that, because if more people in our community were educated, they may try to find other ways to respond to how they're feeling. But I'm not going to fault anybody for destroying anything, because we have been constantly destroyed and traumatized and in pain.
So I see Kayla,
Yep,
and
Kayla.
then I'll give a response, then Amir, then you can go to your next question.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say really quickly, and I wasn't really going to touch on this. I agree with what was just said as far as the way we frame Black protest is very interesting. Much more was burned down in the city of Chicago when there was a game won by a baseball team, right? And the way they framed that was things got a little out of hand when some college students were excited. That was over a baseball game. That was over a baseball game. People are burning things down for a life. And when cars are flipped over and burned and windows busted for a baseball game, things are just out of hand. Things got a little out of hand. People were excited. But when people are in the streets protesting for lives, and million-dollar corporations lose a store, we're so upset. They could stand to lose a store. That's one. Two, there has never in the history of ever been a peaceful revolution that caused change that was fully peaceful. America, in the process of wanting freedom from Britain, was throwing tea off of ships. That's ruining merchandise. That was money lost. That was money out of their pockets. We weren't arguing about that. We weren't upset about that. We go to war on the daily. We murder people in other countries regularly for things, for freedom that ain't even American. It's not even American freedom. These aren't American lives. These aren't American issues. And I'm not saying that those issues shouldn't be fought for, but when, first of all, as was said, when we have never seen peace, not only have we never seen peace, but we've never seen peaceful revolution, because they don't exist. So don't be upset, although there is power in peaceful protests. I'm not pitting peaceful protests against violent protests or whatever the case. I'm not pitting those against each other, because I believe that's a whole nother issue. But to say that violent protests or protests that sacrifices merchandise in the middle of a pandemic or whatever, to say that is interesting, when once again, Americans weren't playing nice when we wanted freedom. we wasn't playing nice. We was burning, we was pillaging, we was fighting, we was doing whatever we had to do to get what we thought was ours. And so don't be upset when I follow the model.
And we wasn't. We when America was doing it, wasn't we?
We wasn't. I mean, that's true.
Let's clarify that. See, here's the thing. Rioting and protesting. Here's my issue with this. In protest, sometimes you have to be aggressive, and people will say that's rioting. Whether it's, and others have studied that behavior and then intentionally came in to incite riots to take the narrative off what we're protesting about. And social media captured a lot that most of the people that started busting the windows out and burning down these buildings weren't even protesters. Most of them were not even people of color. Now, of course, when the window was open and there's a flat screen TV right there, somebody probably did go in and get it. But let's be honest, there's strategy and there's tact. People have tactics. And some people, it's strategy to deflect the purpose of what it is that we're trying to accomplish and to shift the narrative. And so that's one thing, but never even be afraid of if it gets to rioting, because I have never seen a revolution happen where there wasn't some type of, somebody didn't like something, okay? Somebody had to get the attention some kind of way. And I'm with you guys. If burning a building down gets the attention, it should get the same attention when somebody kneel on somebody's neck, because that body is a temple. That body is a building too. So just like you're destroying that body, why are we not giving the same rage and anger for destroying that physical body of color as we are the brick and mortar bodies or the brick and mortar temples? So anyway, I want to do that. And I know Cruz has his hand up, and then Amir, we need to shift to the last question, you guys, because we're running out of time and we want our audience to come back the next time. We don't want them to say hold them too long.
So there's so many things that clash and connect with this topic. In the case that, like, Kayla was just talking about war and things. America is known to not negotiate with terrorists, and it's wild that people act like, you know, the policemen who are doing these acts of terror aren't being terrorists. We would just do action. And you got to recognize that, you know, even in the civil rights movement, known for peaceful protesting, we had a Malcolm X. And that was just as valuable as our MLK. And so you got to have both. And it's not the easy, you know, conversation to have, but it did get momentum. And I completely agree with Mrs. Wallace that I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I'm not going to be out there, you know, pillaging and looting, but I'm not going to tell them that they're wrong. And it shouldn't be your prerogative to do that. Like, how are you going to tell someone else how to act, how to react to something that's been hurting them? I mean, we over simpler things like the baseball, people act wild. And this is like my life. You just say all lives matter. Well, do they? Because you're not showing that they do. You think that this building is worth way more than that life, and that's silly. It's silly.
Cruz, you bring up a good point, because it also talks about how words matter. You know, when the Europeans came over to America, they were considered to be explorers. But yeah. I bet you ask the Native Americans here, they were like, "Nah, y'all thieving." You see what I'm saying? So you can't go and explore and find something that belongs to somebody else. It just don't work like that, you know. Right. And so you gotta look at terminology, and those things matter. So again, Go ahead, Amir, and we're gonna go down to our last question.
I'm just gonna finish my statement with.
Oh, go ahead.
With dang, now I lost it. I feel like dang. But all that being pushed aside, it's like recognizing that the reality here is what we're doing has to do with life. And I don't know when we decided that murder was okay or can be justified because, they did something or something like that. The reality here is when people say you do the crime, you got to do the time, the policemen are playing executioner and they're not even giving them that chance. These people aren't going to jail. They're going in coffins. And there's an issue there.
Okay, so wonderful commentary from all of you. My next question is, do you think our current president is doing enough to address the issue on police brutality? And then the second part to that is, what do you think about the current president backing up law enforcement?
Everett, Everett, go ahead.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to be clear. Are we talking about the same president who said when the looting starts, the shooting starts? Or are we talking about a different president? Because I don't think that people put too much respect on Donald Trump, but Donald Trump doesn't deserve to be respected because he doesn't respect anybody. And I'm like coming after him. I'm coming after all his people. He doesn't respect women, children, black people, white people, green people, orange. He doesn't respect anybody because if it's not nothing to do with him or something that he's interested in, he doesn't care about it. So when he heard Black Lives Matter, his response was, "Oh, it doesn't exist." And that's funny to me how when it wasn't about him, it doesn't exist. But when people are outside protesting outside of Trump Tower, he's enraged. He wants these people arrested. He's sending people out there in unmarked vans to snatch these people up and throw them in jail. But then that's just like another conversation. Nobody's talking about that. It's just funny to me how that can be the light. Like, that's life. How our president is out here tweeting like disrespectful things against women, against people in general, but nobody cares because that's Donald Trump and what he said he didn't mean. The same guy that was telling people to drink Clorox was telling people that's how they was going to kill coronavirus. We taking advice from him when it comes to civil rights? I don't think that makes any sense or that's valid whatsoever.
Okay, next up.
Cole. Cole, and then Tomas, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then Cruz.
Yeah, it does kind of seem a little unofficial for the same guy who said that, as said, Clorox bleach shots, where you inject it to your veins, is apparently going to help against coronavirus. I don't really think he's going to be doing it also well. Also, the campaigns that he has, like, you see, like, the campaigns that he has making fun of how, making, not to get political or anything, but making Joe Biden look mentally challenged. On one of his other ones, he said that he repaired the military, and onto a very, very excessively quick tangent that he did in like the 15-second campaign, probably shorter. He says that he killed terrorists on the actual campaign. You mean those innocent people you launched a bomb at for no reason apart from the fact that you called them terrorists? I mean, most of his campaigns that he's actually doing that basically slanders other people are so laudatory anyway, so it's just like, the sad thing about it is they're probably going to work because ignorance, you know, it's just, even though they're the dumbest things, we're one of the things, like, we have seen the most tax increase because Joe Biden exists. But the thing about it is, who's in office? I don't think he's in office yet. Do we have to look back on the person who was Trump? Who are you looking at here? So I don't really think that he's, you know, addressing the situation positively at all. You know, as Pryor said, you know, aforementioned tweets and what he said, and he's not really doing much to address anything at the moment. You know.
Absolutely.
Oh, you know what? Everybody, all y'all nailed it completely. I know that's common thing to say, but you know what, I want to add on to that too. Yeah, like everyone was saying, the man that is, you know, suggested nuking a hurricane and like all the craziest things, and then even his campaign ads, it's so hilarious because not only does it look like it was made in a third grade project, but why are you saying this is Kamala and Joe Biden's America, like the one where the burglar breaks in and, oh, this is the police, you won't be hurt? But they're not in office right now. And here's my thing. I know there's a lot of unsure people out there and people who aren't even wanting to get to politics, but the truth is you need to get into it so you can be educated. And here's what I did in the post earlier. And I know we're going to talk about it in another conference, but my thing is sometimes you got to vote for somebody who you don't like, but don't vote for someone who doesn't like you. And Trump, you know, Trump doesn't like you. He doesn't like minorities. And his little followers either, their little acts, Leather and Silk or whatever their names are, them, now I'm not even going to get to insulting because I don't want to, you know, be like that. But, you know, them, Candace Owens, that clown, don't get discouraged by them. Even Steve Harvey, Steve Harvey even, he dissed Flint, and he's a big-time Trump supporter and all of that. But, yeah, how could you believe somebody, the man that's, you know, saying, you know, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. He's been known to hide his other, so like at Trump hotels, I heard back in the day, and probably still now, he used to have his other white staff. The other white staff used to hide the black people whenever Trump came in and the spotlight was on and all of that. You know, trying to order the death penalty for 5 innocent youth in Central Park, you know, and just all of that. And then how he's even ignorant with just, even if it's not the big statements, just look at black people love me. There goes my one black voter. Hey, you know, just all of that crazy, horrible stuff, you know, like how can you just know? And then Candace Owens, all these other people, when they try to argue, oh, Trump loves black people. He might say this, but, you know, there's a $7 million increase in jobs and all that. Yeah, whatever. You know, who cares about the economics at this point? It's about the right to live. But if you want to bring up economics, I'll bring it up and keep it real with you. You know what? It's all part-time jobs. So how am I? Some people might have 5 kids at home and an aunt or somebody to help feed or, you know, clothe. How is working part-time at Burger King? And no disrespect, because I believe those jobs need to be valued too, but I'm keeping it real. How is that supposed to help boost up the economy and help, you know, black people, brown, whatever, you know? How can you believe this person, the man that says that he married his daughter if she wasn't hers and this and that? And people try to say, oh, he was a comedian, this and that. Yeah, the White House isn't a comedian. This ain't a comedy show. And just my advice to you, right when they get up, when someone says, I like Trump because he's done the blah, blah, blah the most since blah, that's, you know, already know how juvenile that sounds, man, or whatever, you know, like just, you can already just cut the conversation off from there. But that's my thing. You got to, even if you're not crazy about Joe Biden, he's our savior. That's all I have to say. Him and Kamala. And I just, that's it. And that's all, you know, forget about Kanye. I don't know what he's doing, but he's a Trump supporter too. He's probably undercover, all of that, you know, and just, that's my thing. Trump just so ignorant. He can't even answer a simple question in the interview. It's like, hey, Donald Trump, what'd you eat for breakfast? Oh no, I don't agree with that. I don't agree. Like, see, he doesn't make any logic or sense. We're still in a pandemic right now. And just, it's a whole issue thing. But I could go all day.
So, Bob, I think we should put you up to debate him for the presidential. Yep. I think you can crush him so quickly. We're going to go to Everett, and then I'm going to wrap us up.
Wait, I have my hand raised.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm kidding. But everyone else here has said it in the case that he hasn't said much, and that's true. But we also got to clue into what he has said. I'm ashamed that the people in Michigan pulled up and did that protest with guns. I'm so ashamed that we did that. And then he championed those people like they were heroes. And then a couple weeks later, he had to like the protests where he called us thugs. And I just don't understand how no violence happens to something like that. They have guns in their hands. Nothing happens there. But people are just marching peacefully and when the looting starts, the shooting starts. When we over here letting people and our police force break windows to cause riots, to start the looting. It's like also like manipulative. And that's a lot what he does. And I think it's correct in what everyone else is saying is that he don't care until it actually matters to him, until it affects his pocketbook. And that's the issue here. He's not concerned with everyone. He's not concerned about America, to be honest. He's concerned about is his Trump business going to start skyrocketing because he's had negotiations with North Korea. That's what he's concerned with. And so I'm just going to stop there because y'all all said great things. I could be done.
I know I already, my bad. I'm sorry, I know I already spoke, but I just want to get it right in this really important point. I'm sorry, I know I've spoken a lot. Y'all want me kicked off, but look, Trump, I was just going to say he already blatantly said that he doesn't care. You know, he shows that he already said it because in a recent interview that happened, he said, someone said, what are your thoughts on the George Floyd? He didn't, he says the usual, it's terrible. But then he said, well, what about white people? You know, white people get killed more. He said something crazy about that. So he's one of those all lives matter people. We already know it, but he already said it. Mike Pence, by the way, that speech was horrible. All of it was. I couldn't even stand. I don't even know why I went on it. I was just bored on the Republican thing. But Mike Pence even said something about cops being killed or something. And a cop, because I guess there was riots in Oakland and protests and, both of them. Like I'm saying, I'm not putting them together, but I'm saying both of those were happening in Oakland. And I guess a cop was killed. But it turns out the facts, the cop was killed because he was shot by another cop. No, it was actually a Republican, because there's these Republican people now, kind of like, that have been going around causing violence too. These right-wing, people, that are like, really like, I don't want to be like that person, like that's always, the liberals or the conservatives, but you know what I mean? There's this, like, that's what I heard, this right-wing faction that's really like targets people. They targeted that cop. So, you know, even though Mike Pence looms in the shadows, you can't trust any of them. So I just want to put that out there too. You know, they blatantly said it, and don't trust any of them, even the ones that look like you. I don't care about no, I forgot, but there's some Latinos, a bunch, unfortunately, not all, and the same thing with Black people, but there's some, unfortunately, that support Trump. You can't get corrupted by them people. You can't. You just can't. You can't trust Diamond and Leather, Silk, whatever their names. I don't even care. You can't trust them, Candace Owens, none of them. No matter how Black or brown they look or are, no, they're sellouts. That's just all I have to say. And I'm done. I'm sorry, but have a good day.
Period. Go ahead, Everett.
Yeah, just to kind of like close this conversation off, it goes back to what a lot of us were talking about in the beginning, education. To become president in the United States, there aren't that many requirements. You have to be from the United States and over a certain age. There's no education requirement. Tell me why Donald Trump got to become the president, but when you look at his achievements, his only achievements, he's a successful businessman, but a business that was handed to him by his father. A business that was made and built on somebody else was handed to him, and he's so great because he managed that business. I don't see how he literally is not smart whatsoever. We can see that. I don't even have to like give examples. He's not a smart man, but since he's a businessman, he gets to take over the country and do whatever he wants to do with it. So that's my final thing on that.
And to add to that, it's not so much that he was successful either. A lot of his businesses went into bankruptcy and all those things. So just add that. But just to kind of close out, so this has been a very interactive youth perspective on policing. What I would like to admonish you all to do is to also look up the history of policing. If you do your history and look it up, it's not shocking that people of color feel terrorized because, you know, even when you look back and see the old cowboy and Indian shows, you know, there was a sheriff and a jail, right? They have a police department. It was a sheriff and a jail, right? But the whole concept of policing came from what they call slave patrols. So when the slaves were trying to get to freedom, groups of people, I don't want to just say men, but predominantly men at the time, they would gather with their rifles and they would go and capture the slaves. And so that created literally a fear for those people of color. And so slave patrolling eventually evolved into police patrol. And so go back and do the historical connection there. And then we all of a sudden start seeing policing in cities, specifically cities when you have urban populations. So again, do your history. Thank y'all so much. Y'all were awesome. We went a little bit over our time. We're gonna do better next time, but these discussions are great. And thank you for joining us for another edition of A Youth Perspective by the Flint Public Health Youth Academy. Thank you all so much, and we are off.